Have you ever felt like Bill Murray's character in Groundhog Day? You're living every day exactly the same, but maybe it's like you're attracting the same experiences and patterns over and over again. You date a new person only to find out 3 months in that he is exactly like the last boyfriend you had, which was not good. Maybe you got a new job and you're finally making more money, but your bank account is still hitting zero every month. Maybe you want to get a promotion at work, but every time things get tough, you back down again. If we keep having repeating cycles in our life, like repeating problems, this is a sign to me that shadow work is a really great place to look. Because often these repeating cyclical problems, like it's the same thing in a different package over and over and over again, are a sign that there's something internally that we can work on to help us shift out of that pattern. So I want to talk about how shadow work can help us break these repeating cycles and these repeating patterns. I'm Kim Pirano. I'm a transformational coach, hypnotherapist, and doctor of acupuncture and Chinese medicine. I help people navigate major life changes, chronic pain and illness, and all the other stuff that life tends to throw at us, helping you live your life authentically, in integrity, and to feel really alive while you're doing it. So let's jump into a couple ways that shadow work can help you break repeating cycles. So shadow work is a practice and tool that we use to help integrate unconscious parts of ourselves. When we were kids, there were certain qualities, behaviors that weren't safe to do or be, or just weren't acceptable in the places we grew up. So we repress them into our unconscious, subconscious mind. And later in life, they kind of show up through repeating patterns, through things that trigger us. And those are signs that it's time to shed some light on that shadow so that we can fully integrate it again and make it part of ourselves again in our conscious awareness. So some things that are going to help us and these aspects of where shadow work is going to help us break repeating cycles is first that it gives us a lot of self-awareness and insight. Shadow work dives into our unconscious mind. It sheds light on the stuff we weren't aware of. A thing I always worked with that was super difficult for me was being really triggered by entitled people. And lo and behold, I attracted a lot of entitled people that wanted to be in relationships with me. This was really difficult and hard to do. So through doing shadow work, I was able to find that those entitled people actually represented an element, sort of the flip side of my feelings of unworthiness. Because when you're entitled, you feel really worthy. By bringing light to this, I was able to have less reactivity to it. And when we have less reactivity to something, it doesn't tend to bounce around in our consciousness as much, which means we don't have to call it in and have it exist in those repeating cycles again. So shadow work really helps us break repeating cycles because it brings that awareness. When we have more awareness of what we're doing and why we're doing it, we have less push and pull with it. And when we have less push and pull, right, where something we found totally unacceptable, we would push it away at all costs, it just sort of pushes back harder against us, right? So once we bring that awareness to what we've been doing, how we feel about it, that push-pull starts to fade. And that means we don't have to have this push-pull anymore. In the case of always not having enough money or not being able to do those rudimentary, boring tasks that have to do with your business, when we start to uncover the shadow around the business or around being successful, that push-pull starts to fade away. And then we have a little less reactivity to doing those rudimentary tasks, doing that boring accounting stuff, so that we can actually run the business and it's not so polarized and reactive anymore. And through this process, we have acknowledged those shadow aspects, we've brought light to them, we see what they are, and now we integrate and accept them. We do this a lot by feeling those sensations and feelings and emotions that come up in the body when we are triggered by that shadow element or quality. after we know what it is, so we can go, oh, that person's really entitled and I feel super triggered right now. What does that feel like? When we start to bring this awareness and we start to actually feel those sensations, they can actually start to move through us again, which is really helpful in that integrating and accepting piece of the puzzle. Now, not every shadow element or quality that comes out is going to be as sort of benign as like somebody who feels entitled or not wanting to put in the work around something or being lazy. Sometimes there are emotional wounds attached to these shadow elements as well, because there were traumas in our past that were related to them. So as we uncover what our shadow qualities are, what these elements are, what those behaviors are, what these things are that were unacceptable to be, sometimes there's an actual significant wound or trauma associated there. So as we become aware of this, we can start to connect those dots and see like how these two things interplay with each other, how one aspect of our shadow quality is related to this quality that happened in our childhood and how that's blocking us today. So we can bring that awareness to it and then heal it through emotional processing and somatic parts work, bringing things all together again and moving through instead of having to keep repeating that cycle. And what I love, of course, the most about doing shadow work, especially in breaking repeating cycles, is that it really gives us a sense of empowerment and personal growth. I think of this as like the empowerment window, where if we're not in that window, we're kind of blaming bad stuff on external factors most of the time. And when we're in that window, we can see like how my role played a part in it and what I can do about it. On the other side of that window is claiming that everything came from my own conscious or unconscious awareness, or that I'm creating everything, bringing it in, or whatever, that I'm fully in control, which isn't super healthy or helpful to do either. So we live in this little window of empowerment where we can see how I can take accountability and shift things in my life, and where things maybe I don't need to take accountability for, and how I can process that along the journey. So if you're looking for help with breaking some repeating patterns, getting out of cycles that aren't serving you anymore, shadow work is a great way to start breaking down those barriers and breaking through those cycles that are not getting you where you want to go. Shadow work really needs to be done with a guide or a coach who's trained in shadow work, because your ego loves to keep things the same. Your ego really does not want anything to change, and it's going to trick you and subvert you and divert you so that you never really find that true root of what's going on. So it's really useful to use a coach to help you through this process so that you can see what's truly going on and then move through it. So if you're interested in learning more about coaching with me, you can click the link in my bio to book a discovery call, and we will actually do a mini shadow work session on that discovery call, and it's totally free to you. We get to talk about what you want to work on and see if we're a good match together.